we've got all that there. It's not, if Charles Kirkland got shot in the neck in the fucking Goonies, it would end there. Chuck Chuck! Hey, Hazel. Welcome to Video Seance with your host, the infamous Magnetic Weasel, Snake Eyes. We will be talking today about Snake Eyes. I wanted to throw this together real quick because there's a couple things I haven't seen anywhere else yet. To quickly recap, this thing has been in the zeitgeist because it features in the plot a man named Charles Kirkland getting shot in the neck. This is a Nick Cage, Brian Depalma thing, 1998. Predictive programming, obviously, is a thing that gets tossed around. Synchro-mysticism is a little more up my alley. I like everyone to know up front, though, that I am perpetually indecisive. I don't plan on subscribing to any kind of theory flat out. I just think this shit is interesting. I think that if you can't entertain it without getting upset, then you should probably, move on and go about your day. Also, there's going to be a fuck ton of spoilers. I am going to fucking spoil the whole thing. This is crucial to what I'm doing, so I'm going to assume a little bit of knowledge of the piece. I'm going to assume that you either don't care, it's not Game of Thrones, whatever, it's a movie from 1998. Charles Kirkland gets shot in the neck on September 10th, so that is very, very specific. If this is just completely random, we would not expect to see any meat there. There wouldn't be, more stuff to dig into. So, name, date, method of execution, lone gunman story, whatever. We've got all that there. It's not, if Charles Kirkland got shot in the neck in the fucking Goonies, it would end there. There's no more to mine out of that well. Or maybe there is. I don't know. Someone should do that and test me. But, so there's a couple things that line up that I think people are missing. First and foremost, if we make a straight line through the plot with a razor, this Trump-like character, who's a real estate guy in Atlantic City, combining efforts with the feds to kill one of their own, and I'm talking about the lone gunman, not Charles Kirkland, they set him up, blame him as a pro-Palestinian far-left radical who intends to take out the Secretary of Defense, Charles Kirkland, because he's going to supply Israel with weapons. Now, we learn that the weapons are pretty much bullshit, and the feds take out Charles Kirkland in order to keep the war machine going. So Charles Kirkland could be seen as this intermediary who might flip on the Israel thing. He's at least standing in the way of them getting funds in a certain light. But that's the main thing that I think we're not spending enough time on when we hear all this talk about, there's the all-seeing eye on a blimp, and, there's these hand gestures, and, maybe the minutia matters, maybe it doesn't. I'm not here to make that kind of judgment. But I think if we actually just look at the core of the story, it might not necessarily exactly parallel reality, but there's a lot floating around. There's a lot of charged stuff that is pretty damn close. And like I said, if this were Goonies, the conversation would be over already. There'd be nothing to really talk about. So that's the first thing, drawing a straight line through the story and just getting down to what the story is about. Now, part of that has to do with this Trump character played by John Hurd, Powell, and he wants to construct a Millennium Tower. That's what he gets out of this deal. That's what he, is orchestrating this plot for. We've got architecture on the table, which is arguably what, Trump's a real estate guy. That's theoretically what he stands to gain out of Israel right now, is developing territory. So this happens in Atlantic City. The significance of the architecture in this film and the fact that Powell's motivations, i.e. Trump's motivations, are building this Millennium Tower, we could probably do a whole episode on that in and of itself. But it gets all the more interesting if we're talking about syncs here, and we realize that Charlie Kirk was brought into Trump's circle because his dad was a Trump architect that worked on places like the Tropicana in Atlantic City. So again, we go back to my Goonies example. If there weren't these underlying currents, we could stop looking. Atlantic City is Sin City, is Las Vegas, is Sodom and Gomorrah, if you will, whatever it is. It's hedonistic. And the second thing that I think people are missing is an entire character in this movie. And that is Habad, or Baal, the storm god, who is inferred because in the beginning and the end, we have a hurricane that bookends the whole story. So this assassination plot, all this chaos, this literal intrigue and chaos is going on inside of a casino, and on the outside, a hurricane is raging. Hurricane Jezebel. Now, if you've looked into this at all, you might understand that Jezebel was the name of a publisher that was kind of bragging that they put a curse on Charlie Kirk right before he got shot. But Jezebel, as a historical character, is an Israelite queen who is known for trying to encourage the worship of Baal. Now, Baal is a title, much like Satan. It's not necessarily one single god. Habad might be a more specific god we can look to, but thematically, it's any storm god. Neptune is also mentioned in the movie briefly. Nick Cage goes to high school in Neptune with Tyler the Executioner. So I think that what we're seeing here is that the storm itself is a character. It's an agent of chaos, order out of chaos. Maybe there's something like that going on. But the movie is bookended by a storm, such to the extent that the original ending was supposed to have, like, a lot of people die in a flood and the hurricane really comes to take people down. And a little bit of that is still left over in the final cut, but by and large, they changed the ending a lot. But Nick Cage does say something at the end, which is really interesting. It used to be in the beginning, if you look at one of the older cuts of the script. He's looking out at the rocks and he's just like, pirates used to make fake lighthouses and, encourage ships to wreck on the shore, and they would rob them blind. So the only thing that's changed is that the lights are brighter. Now, this line is very important. Clearly, it was in the screenwriter's head, at least from the beginning, because he put it at the beginning, and it was an integral part of what they're trying to say here. It's saying something very specific about Vegas, obviously, or about sin or, vices. The lights are brighter. It's the glitz and the glamour of Vegas is now they're the new pirates. They're robbing people blind. But this is also interesting because the name of the shooter, the patsy, the Palestinian, is Tariq Ben Rabat. Now, Tariq means light bringer, so he could be seen as Lucifer, the light bringer, associated with Venus, etc., and or the one who comes at night, the one who knocks at night is the other meaning. And this has to do with desert travel and safer passage at night. So Rabat is the capital of Morocco, and for a period of time they were known for these pirates that were some of the progenitors of using false flags. Now, where we get that term is pirates throwing up a flag of a different nation to seem friendly, doing the robbing, putting the flag back to, whatever it is when they go back home, and having that be a very deceitful thing. Everybody in this movie is deceitful. Every character you see, except for the reporter. The reporter tries to declare that Jezebel is a hurricane. The cameraman is just like, no, call it a tropical storm. It's they don't actually say Memorial Day. I almost said that. They said it's a holiday weekend. Let's get the hell out of here. Implying that if they just call it a tropical storm, they'll get out of work early. She's like, I love this town. They even spin the weather. She's being kind of ironic and, whatnot. But she's the only one in the whole movie who tries to tell the truth. We're then interjected into the world of Nick Cage, which is, it puts you at this frenzied state where you're not really sure what's going on. Things are happening very quickly. Nick Cage is like the shiny keys to distract us a little bit as all this stuff is flying by. There's 1,000 other ways this movie could have gone that would have made it not interesting to look into and have no meat on the bones there. But the way that the movie progresses, the way that all these things fit together, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. We can get in. I have a lot of ideas about the possibilities of how the mechanics of this work, and it's basically going to come down to either you don't think it means anything at all, or it's at the core of how reality works. The first thing we see that's kind of intelligible, so there's kind of some underwater stuff happening, some murky whatever, which is, telling. As I said before, that's the way the movie bookends itself, is with storm, weather, water. The camera pans past a globe with Powell's name on it. It says Powell Millennium. It's a globe sitting on top of 4 missiles. I thought they were arrows at first, actually, because they look kind of like arrows. But reading the script, it specifically says that they're missiles. So here we have the globe sitting on fake missiles. The plot itself rests the fate of the globe on these fake weapons that the United States is supposed to sell to Israel. I think there's so much there. If nothing else, it lets us know that Depalma has a knack for burying things that are sort of obvious, sort of not. They lead to this kind of like Kubrickian analysis of like the movie as a whole. Masterful in a way. I mean, this is one of the most boring Nick Cage movies. He's just kind of a dick. He's cheating on his wife. There's not a lot to like about him. I watched this movie years ago. Before this incident, there's basically nothing remarkable about it. There's so much there now, but before there was basically nothing. I would put it on par with the most forgettable Van Damme movies. It's not fucking Time Cop. Okay, so back to the architecture to finish this out. The way this movie ends, it's one of those movies that plays video during the whole stretch of the credits, and we hear a Meredith Brooks song, which is very clearly written for the movie because it's got 3 or 4 quotes or references that it's a little too on the nose. Nick Cage and the woman in white are at the beach, and you see this new construction go up, and we just keep zooming in on one of these pillars being erected, and we zoom in on a ruby. Now, from a cursory glance, the ruby here, in the Bible, it's associated with the blood of Christ, obviously wealth, kingliness, kingship, and it's being built into the tower. To my knowledge, there aren't ruby references earlier in the film, which made this stick out to me. If there's something I missed, let me know. I haven't picked up on it anywhere except the end. On the next part, we will be talking about names and what they mean and if they're intentional or not. Let me know what else you want to see out of these videos. In a future video, we will probably be discussing the influence of intelligence agencies in film creation and the theoretical implications of how something this specific is even possible. Is it coincidence or not? I'm not here to tell you that. I am here to help you think of things that maybe you didn't. I watched it so you don't have to. Another thing I'm going to do on this channel is watch and review some of the shittiest movies I can find. It's a pastime of mine. I have a bigger stomach for it than a lot of people. That's what I think. Let me know what you think. I know that there's things I forgot, but keep in mind that I'm trying to push this into a couple different videos. I just wanted to get this out there because I didn't see anybody talking about the things that I was talking about. I felt like I had something to add to the conversation. So there you go. Enjoy. Hazel.